Beneath the ordinary clang of loose change clinking in a jar, two seemingly unremarkable dimes are hiding stories that can turn a casual pocket find into a collector's jackpot. One was struck in 2003, carrying forward a legacy born out of admiration for a president taken too soon. The other, minted in 1997, seems quiet at first glance, yet hides an unexpected twist. Today, we'll unlock the secrets of that 2003 dime, revealing why a handful of them have become the envy of seasoned numismatists, and why you might want to double-check your own drawers before we move on to the 97 piece. Let's zero in on that first star of our show, the 2003 US 1 dime. On its face, it bears the familiar profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt, his shoulders squared and gaze steady. Yet when it rolled off the presses at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, subtle variations in finish and striking left a small subset of pieces that command far more than their 10-cent denomination. Some are tucked away in proof sets, others slipped into circulation by mistake, and each carries its own story. Going back to the origin of the Roosevelt dime helps explain why collectors still lean in close. In early 1946, the U.S. Mint sought to honor Roosevelt's leadership in founding the March of Dimes campaign. Sculptor John R. Cynic was commissioned to translate FDR's vision into metal, choosing a dignified portrait paired with an olive branch, torch, and oak sprig on the reverse. By 2003, that design had endured for over half a century, long enough that subtle changes in die preparation and striking technology became especially appealing to specialists who track finished details and die states. The composition of that 2003 dime is identical to its predecessors from 1965 onward, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. The uniformity makes variations in strike quality and finish all the more important. Under magnification, the steps on the torch's flame are crisp on some specimens, while weak on others. That crispness, officially graded as full torch steps, can add significant premiums, sometimes more than $50, when found on uncirculated business strikes. Speaking of mint facilities, the 2003 dime carries a P mint mark for Philadelphia, a D for Denver, or an S for San Francisco proofs. Philadelphia pieces without mint marks are easily overlooked, drifting through tills like any everyday coin. Denver strikes are plentiful, but those marked D sometimes exhibit repunched mint marks or die cracks crossing the rim, traits that error enthusiasts adore. The San Francisco proofs, however, are where serious money lies. Fewer than 4 million proof dimes were released that year, and a small fraction received the deep cameo DCM treatment. Proof dimes from San Francisco were struck on specially polished planchets with highly polished dies, creating a mirrored field and frosted devices. In about 1 in 10 proof dimes from 2003, the contrast between background and portrait is so striking it appears as though the torch and relief elements float above the surface. These cams are at the top of every collector's checklist for the year. With official mintage figures logged at just under 3.5 million and only a handful certified at PR 70 DCM, finding one in perfect condition is akin to discovering hidden treasure in a dusty paper envelope. What makes these cameo proofs rare is not only the relatively low number graded at the highest levels, but the fact that many were sold in mint sets and then stored by non-collectors who didn't appreciate their full value. Over the last decade, auction platforms have seen sudden surges when consignments of 2003 est cam PR 69s or 70s appear. In fact, one PR 70 DCM fetched over $200 at auction in 2023, shattering pre-sale estimates and catching even veteran dealers off guard. Business strike dimes, by contrast, command more modest prices, unless they exhibit full torch steps or error varieties. A 2003 PMS67 with full steps might sell for $20 to $30, while an MS69 example could climb towards $75. Denver strike dimes with repunched mint marks or mild die cracks have traded hands in the $50 to $100 range, depending on eye appeal and provenance. Meanwhile, circulated examples, beneath MS60, typically trade near face value, but a sharp-eyed collector might pay up to $5 for ones with clear device details and untouched surfaces. A memorable story involves a collector who received a handful of change at a coffee shop, spotted an unusually bright 2003 proof dime among the quarters, and wound up with a PR-69 DCM that had slipped out of its original holder. That coin later sold for more than $150 online, proving that a casual glance under good lighting can pay off. Tales like this have spurred collectors to reevaluate every pocketful, convinced that what seems mundane may in fact be a hidden gem. When assessing condition-based value, circulated 2003 dimes seldom top $2 or $3 unless they display exceptional detail. As the grade ascends into uncirculated territory, premiums jump steeply. An MS-63 from Philadelphia might go for $2 to $5, while the same coin at MS-65 or higher can approach $20. Denver strikes follow a similar curve, though small error varieties can skew values higher if demand is tight. Proof dimes demand a different scale. Non-cameo proofs graded PR-69 typically appear around $15 to $30. Cameo proofs at PR-69 begin around $40, climbing to over $100 in strong auction markets. For the coveted PR-70 DCM, the absolute pinnacle, a premium of $200 or more is not uncommon when a fresh population check ignites bidding wars. Certification labels, original mint packaging, and provenance notes can all add extra pizzazz in the eyes of discerning buyers. Before parting ways with any 2003 dime, it pays to inspect under magnification and compare against online population reports from PCGS or NGC. Check for die polish lines in proof fields, subtle frosting on devices, and the sharpness of torch steps. For business strikes, examine the D mint mark for double impressions or repunching. These small quirks can translate to large margins when selling to the right audience. Keep that 2003 dime within arm's reach while we shift our attention to the 97 counterpart. Although the 1997 Roosevelt dime looks nearly identical at first glance, it harbors its own set of rare varieties and market surprises that experienced collectors won't want to miss. Stay tuned as we reveal why your pocket change from the late 90s might just hold the next big find. You might have spotted a shiny dime in your pocket that looks perfectly ordinary, but what if that same small coin could hide a story worth hundreds of dollars? Today we're uncovering one of those unassuming treasures, the 1991 Roosevelt dime. It's a piece many of us passed along in rolls or spin on gum. Yet under the right lens, it can reveal fascinating twists in design, minting quirks, and auction surprises that seasoned collectors and casual finders alike will appreciate. Let's peel back the layers and see why this dime deserves a second glance. The Roosevelt dime first appeared in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt's legacy, replacing the Mercury design. By 1991, the design had celebrated over 4 decades of continuity. Margaret Thatcher was UK Prime Minister, Nirvana had just broken through, and Americans jangled their change to buy payphone calls. The Philadelphia and Denver mints stamped out millions of these copper-nickel-clad dimes that year, making them overwhelmingly common in everyday circulation. But within that sea of metal, subtle variations and error coins slipped through quality control and found their way into collections, turning what many saw as pocket change into a small but intriguing branch of modern numismatics. At first glance, a 1991 Roosevelt dime looks just like any other. President Roosevelt's profile on the obverse, torch oak olive motifs on the reverse, and a tiny P or D mint mark off to the side. Key identifying features for collectors include crispness of the relief, the precise shape of Roosevelt's hair strands, and the way light dances across the fields and devices. Error hunters look for doubling on the mint mark or date, slight die cracks that appear as raised lines, and repunched mint marks where evidence of a second strike shows in heat-tempered metal. Spotting these details often requires a loupe and a patient eye, but the rewards can be tangible when a seemingly mundane coin turns out to be one of only a handful graded at the highest levels. Common examples of the 1991 dime in circulated grades trade for face value or a few cents above, but uncirculated survivors tell a very different story. A PCGS-graded MS60 piece might command $1 to $2, while an MS65 could fetch $5 to $7. Jump up to MS67, and you're looking at roughly $20 on today's market. MS68 coins have crossed into the $60 to $80 range, thanks to their razor-sharp luster and flawless fields. On the proof side, 1991 proofs graded PR69 Deep Cameo often sell between $30 and $40, and a perfect PR70 Deep Cameo has reached around $60 in recent auctions. The auction record for any 1991 dime, an MS68 Plus or an exceptional error specimen, crept up to roughly $200 at a specialist sale last year, underscoring how condition and rarity intersect to surprise even veteran collectors. Some of the more intriguing stories involve small hoards of high-grade dimes discovered in old mint bags or forgotten proof sets. One collector recounted finding a handful of 1991 P dimes with a slight die crack along the rim, a flaw so subtle it went unnoticed by mint inspectors. When slabbed and certified, those coins sold for 3 to 5 times the going rate for standard MS67 examples. Other enthusiasts recall the thrill of spotting a ghost mark, where a weakly impressed mint mark left behind a ghost-like second image, turning a routine dime into a sought-after curiosity. As with any modern issue, condition dictates value. Circulated coins show soft details. Roosevelt's hair looks worn, fields are marred by bag friction, and rims may display tiny nicks. These trade at or near 10 cents apiece. Near mint state dimes, grades MS63 to MS64, boast fully defined features and evident mint luster, trading in the $3 to $10 window. Above MS65, surfaces take on mirror-like brilliance, and even microscopic abrasions become deal-makers or deal-breakers. Proofs require an even steadier hand and striking press. A cameo contrast between frosted devices and polished fields can elevate a dime from mid-two digits to three-digit territory if it reaches flawless grade. Now that we've peeled back the layers on the 1991 dime, you'll never look at pocket change the same way. Up next, we'll explore a 1970 Roosevelt dime, whose story takes us back to a time of radical mint experimentation and some of the rarest Roosevelt errors on record. Stay tuned for more coin collecting surprises. Just as that 2003 dime surprised us with its cameo proofs and hidden die quirks, the 1997 Roosevelt dime quietly slipped into pockets nationwide, concealing its own little treasures. While it might look like just another piece of change, seasoned collectors know that certain examples from 1997 can turn an everyday transaction into a thrilling discovery. Our journey begins with the backdrop of the late 1990s. The U.S. Mint was riding a wave of technological improvements in die preparation and coining presses. By 1997, they had standardized the copper-nickel clad composition that had begun in 1965, bonding a pure copper core between 25% nickel outer layers. Yet beneath that uniform appearance, minute changes in die finishing, slight alterations in polishing routines, die hardness, and striking pressure set the stage for varieties that numismatists still dissect today. Under the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, struck by John R. Cynic in 1946, the 1997 dime carries on the same dignified profile on the obverse and the iconic torch, olive branch, and oak sprig on the reverse. But look closely, and you'll spot more than just standard features. Business strikes from Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D. number in the hundreds of millions, while San Francisco proof dimes, S. saw just over 11 million pieces minted. Even with high mintages, unsung rarities emerge when you hunt for full torch steps, doubling, and off-center errors. Full torch steps, FTS, varieties have become a cornerstone for specialists. On a well-struck 1997 P, the three vertical steps on the torch's flame are sharply defined, with crisp edges that pop under magnification. Discovering an MS67 FTS from Philadelphia can add a healthy premium, often 3 to 5 times the value of a similar grade, without full steps. Denver strikes also produce their share of FTS pieces, albeit in smaller quantities, making MS66 or higher FTS coins surprisingly scarce. Error coins add extra excitement. A handful of 1997 D dimes exhibit repunched mint marks where the D appears doubled or slightly shifted. These RPMs, repunched mint marks, can fetch $50 to $100 or more, depending on eye appeal and clarity of the doubling. Off-center strikes, where up to 5% of the design is missing, occasionally surface, and these can command anywhere from $30 for mild misalignments to over $200 when the strike is severely off by more than 10%. Proof aficionados, meanwhile, chase deep cameo, DCM, finishes and ultra-sharp frosted devices. The 1997 S dime saw a mix of standard proofs and cameo proofs, with only a fraction designated DCM. In pristine PR69 DCM, these often trade between $40 and $80, while the rare PR70 DCM can climb north of $150. Of particular note are a handful of early strikes, sometimes called first-day strikes, which exhibit a slightly broader frosted rim and deeper cameo contrast, fetching an extra 10 to 20% over regular DCM specimens. Market values shift over time, but as of early 2025, circulated 1997 dimes without notable variety hover around face value to $2. That changes quickly when full torch or error types appear. An MS63 business strike might sell for $3 to $5, but once you hit MS65 with full torch steps, values can leap into the $15 to $25 range. MS67 FTS examples in top condition often break $50, and MS68 FTS, if you can find one, can exceed $100. Proof dimes follow their own trajectory. Standard proofs graded PR69 usually trade between $10 and $20. Cameo mirror contrast in PR69 DCM brings that up to $40 to $60, and PR70 DCM specimens routinely fetch $150 to $200. Auction results show occasional spikes when rare off-center proofs or die breaks attract error collectors, sometimes driving prices well above these averages. One memorable tale involves a dealer buying a batch of circulated 1997 dimes from a small shop dumpster sale. Tucked in a paper coin roll was an off-center Denver strike, about 8% misaligned, with crisp detail on the remaining design. He snapped a quick photo, listed it online, and watched bids soar past $180 in under 48 hours. Stories like that remind us why even high mintage dates deserve careful inspection. Condition really guides value here. In circulated grades, good, G, to very fine, VF, you're looking at $1 to $2 unless a full steps variety is evident even with wear. Once you reach about uncirculated AU or mint state, MS, levels, small differences matter. And $58 FTS might command $10, while MS60 without FTS holds at around $4. At MS63 FTS, you might pay $25. At MS65 FTS, $50 or more. And MS67 FTS? That's a true gem, pushing towards $100 in strong markets. Proof grading is equally sensitive. A PR67 SFS, standard cameo, holds around $25, but once you hit full cameo in PR68, you're looking at $40. PR69 DCM steps that to $60 to $80, and PR70 DCM is where serious collectors stake their claim, often paying $150 to $200 upfront. Beyond grades and varieties, the 1997 dime has its own quirky footnotes. That year saw reports of a small batch of business strike planchets with slightly higher copper content, leading to a faintly reddish hue under certain lighting. While none of these have yet been certified as a distinct variety, collectors on forums still debate whether they'll someday warrant separate recognition. Another reminder that the hobby is always evolving. Before you spend or sell any 1997 dime, take a moment to examine it under a loupe or even a high-resolution smartphone camera. Look for fully outlined torch steps, check the mint mark for doubling, and note any inconsistency in color or strike centering. A small scratch can cost you $10, but a clear FTS or error can be worth 10 times that. Whether you're sliding through pocket change or sorting out a bag of mint sets, keep your eyes peeled. The 1997 Roosevelt dime may not wear a glaring badge of rarity, but now you know exactly where to look and what to look for. With each discovery, be it a subtle die crack or a bold cameo contrast, you're not just holding a dime. You're handling a piece of modern numismatic history that could pay off in more ways than one.